Good evening. At this point in time, I'd like all the candidates for council to please come up on the stage. I'm missing one person.
I can, but it won't help.
I could put up my mouse.
Not my way.
brought the funding.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome. My name's Steve Simon. I'm the president of the Blue Mountain Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of all of our many members, our board of directors, and myself, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight. This is a very select group. We have had to cut off the door because of capacity regulations. Again, thank you all for coming out. To the candidates, we have 16 people running for the 3 positions of council, deputy mayor, and mayor, and all 16 are in attendance, so thank you to all of you. Also, a big shout out to Rogers Communications. They are recording this event and will be running it. The actual schedule of air times will be both on our website and our Facebook page, so it will be preserved in posterity, and remember that. and there for everybody to view. It's very important to have lots of information as we express our civic duty to vote. Also want to send a thank you out to Bruce Street Technologies, who is live webcasting this event on our Facebook page. Thank you to Bruce Street Technologies. A couple of housekeeping things, I guess. Maybe to some of your disappointment, there will be no questions from the floor tonight. We believe that was really done well by the various citizens groups. Anybody that was out to Maiolo's to see the candidates saw that firsthand. That's been done really well. What we did is we canvassed our membership and came up with a list of questions. We gave them to the candidates in advance so they could prepare in-depth, concise answers. And that's what we're going to hear tonight. There is no Wi-Fi in the Marsh Street Centre tonight. The webcast is sucking up all the bandwidth, so just be aware of that if you're trying to actually use the Wi-Fi here. One last bit of housekeeping and a bit of a plug for the Blue Mountain Chamber of Commerce. Everybody's probably heard of our After 6 events. We have our next one next Wednesday, September 26th at the BVO. Everybody knows where the BVO is. It is also co-sponsored by IG Private Wealth Financial Consultant Nancy Griffin. So hope to see everybody next week. Okay, so what is this evening about? We talked about achieving sustainable economic development and economic growth. Why? Why is that important? It's important that we leave a legacy for the people behind us, that this is a vibrant community, not just 10 years from now, but 20, 30, 40 years. Everybody knows we're in the midst of a massive boom. Baby boomers are flocking here en masse, buying houses and choosing this as their retirement destination. We have wonderful geography that allows for a very active lifestyle. We have a tremendous character, a very diverse commercial space. This is just a wonderful place to live, and people are coming here in record numbers. But there's some negatives to that. We have a shortage of workers already, and that's a big one. That's one of the biggest ones. The baby boom is just a wonderful thing. 1959-60 was when the birth rate peaked, around 4 births per mother. By 63, something called the birth control pill became available, and that number starts to drop, and fairly quickly goes down to 2 births per mother, which is where we're at sort of today. It's wonderful what we're creating here, but there's a danger we all get old at once. And how do we sustain this economy 20, 30, 40 years from now? And that's what tonight is about. How do we attract young workers? Where are they going to live? Where's their daycare? Do we need transit? And there's a whole raft of tertiary issues around that. And I'm going to leave all of that to the candidates, because that's what we're asking them tonight, is how do we leverage what's going on today, this boom, to create a sustainable economy for future generations. So the format is pretty simple. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to speak about their overall plan and strategy for long-term economic development. That will be followed by a second round in which each candidate will have a further 2 minutes to state their answers to the 3 following questions. These questions are pretty basic. Tourism, agriculture, and development are our big 3 sectors. What would you do to specifically encourage growth in these areas? Secondly, what plans do you have, specific plans, to leverage the current boom to create sustainable growth? And then any stable economy has to have diversity. So the third question is, what plans do you have to encourage diversity in our economy? There were 16 candidates here, so we split it up. We have behind me the 10 that are running for councillor. We're going to start with those and then move on to the 3 candidates for deputy mayor and the 3 candidates for mayor. So firstly, we're going to ask the 10 candidates for councillor to come up and answer their questions. I'm going to introduce them, first of all. My far right, we have Peter Bourdignon. A big wave. Paula Hope. Andrea Matrosovs. Okay, I got that right. Thank you. Alex Maxwell. Hello. And Terrence Pettit. Pettit, got it. Okay. Then we have June Porter. Hello. Rob Sampson. Rob Potter. Hi. Sorry, never put the 2 Robs together. Rob Sampson, Jim Urim, and John White. Rather than draw names from a hat, we're just going to use the old-fashioned alphabetical order. So I would start by asking Peter Bourdignon to come up. And by the way, the 2 minutes is very specific. At the end of your 2 minutes, the microphone will go down.
Thanks. As long as it's not a trap door, Steve, I appreciate that. Good evening, everybody. As Steve said, my name is Peter Bourdignon. I'm running for town council right here in the town of the Blue Mountains. Before I just get started, since we have a capacity crowd, by show of hands, who's planning on voting in this election? All right, that's good, because 6 of you in the real world would be lying, because we only get 4 out of 10 people actually voting. So I'm so happy that this is an engaged community, that we're going to see record numbers at the polls, which is online and internet only. So if you don't know that, you know that now. There's no paper ballots, there's no mail-in, you have to use the internet or the phone. System we tested today, which worked very, very well. So you'll be getting your voter cards very soon in the mail, so keep those aside. Right now, as Steve was saying, we're a very well-established town. We're almost, we have the luxury of being drunk on tourism, on development, but that can't continue forever in perpetuity. And we have very wealthy people, we have retired people, we have a lot of 1-acre lots, everybody coming to the Blue Mountains. But we're a diverse community, stretching from agricultural to the mountain. I don't think anywhere else in Canada or North America you'd find a place where, if you tried to make us like an animal, like we'd probably be a platypus or a unicorn, because where else do you get a place where you have 2.3 million visitors in one part, you have a beautiful retirement community in another area, you have beautiful agricultural land, you have great beachfront, and then you have local pockets of people that have been here forever and local artisans. So you have to put all these pieces together. And that involves a lot of moving parts. One we have to look at very closely is our labor force. Where does our labor come from? Where are they going to live? And how are they going to get around? So you have labor, transit, and housing. They all tie in together. There's things we have to look at, because our geographical boundaries don't represent our economy boundaries anymore. We have to share services. We looked at the expanded bus route, which was fantastic, which I think a lot of community groups, especially the Blue Mountain Village Association, was instrumental in getting expanding bus routes. And that's joining different towns and different counties together. Is that my 15 seconds? All right. Or he's selling something. There's a big house deal closing out. I'm not sure. Anyways, I will talk a little bit later about those 3 specific questions. But one thing we have to be cognizant of, this is a new council. You're going to have 5 new people on council. You have 10 choices for those. Please do your due diligence and look for a positive, straightforward, thinking team that can lead this town as we move forward, because the decisions we make now are going to have generational effects. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I'll see you in a bit. Thank you.
And now welcome Paula Hope to the stage.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're meant to discuss our overall strategies for the long-term development of the town of Blue Mountains. So I'd like to say, first of all, an engaged community is the most important base for building a community that will last, which is what the vision was in our sustainable path that we wrote way back in 2010, meant to go to 2060. We want to continue to be an awesome place to live. That's really what it's all about. So that means preserving what we have and building on all of the incredible opportunities that we have before us. We are a rare rural gem. Just is what has happened to us. We've been so fortunate. I come from a family in Grey County where we were farmers and really in a lot of scarcity. The fact that we have what we have now is just amazing. And of course, Peter mentioned we have lots of well-to-do residents. And there's a perception, well, then we don't need as much. But in fact, in order to sustain what we have, we must make many more investments than we have to date. In fact, we're behind. So the first thing that I would do is ensure that we have and I ask for your help, that we have a strong elected team. Because with a strong council before you, anything is possible. So we need the right people on council. We need your help to make sure that that happens. We need to work very closely with our staff. There's a lot that's happened. We need to build a can-do culture within our town, between our staff and our townspeople and ourselves. An immediate concern which has an impact on the economic side as well as on people is we need to get going on housing. We've been very general in the way that we've approached housing. I'm going to speak about that further. But we do have an immediate concern where we are basically Whistler East. We have 2.5 million visitors every year compared to Whistler's 3 million visitors a year. Whistler has 2,000 housing units. We have 172. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us. We've got a lot of opportunity, and with the right elected officials, anything is possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Andrea?
Thank you very much to the Blue Mountain Chamber of Commerce for gathering all of us here. And I'm sorry to say that we had to turn some people away at the door. But as Paula mentioned, fantastic. Look at the kind of vibrant community we already have here, that people are coming on a busy night to come and hear us speak. That is actually part of the reason that I wanted to shape my answer, because the answers are very much, you've asked us very much to focus on our economic vision, but community is a big part of that, and I'd like to share how I make that connection. I have 3 different business connections in my background. For one thing, after 6 years of having our office in Collingwood, my son's IT business, JMS IT, which is one of the newest members to the Blue Mountain Chamber of Commerce, we moved his office over here to Clarksburg. When we got here, we realized very quickly that we were not alone. There was an entire community that was ready there. James is meeting people through the Blue Mountain Chamber. Sarah Filion is the tenant that's just underneath us at the Swanson Gallery, and immediately we realized that we weren't just on our own in that office. I think that's a vital strategy for our town to learn from too. That not just relying on the communities, the business associations such as the Chamber and the Clarksburg Village Association and the BIA in Thornbury, but also that we can really contribute that as a town by boosting our staff and our support for our small businesses as they move into the area, so that we can all feel supported the way that we have. Another aspect of my business background is actually quite new. I have a basket making venture. I discovered that I really love doing baskets, but it very quickly became into a sole proprietorship and into
15 seconds.
A new business. So again, I realized very quickly when I joined the Artsburg community that I'm not alone. It is that community, the mentors that I'm getting from the artist community. And I think, again, as a council and as a town, we need to support that. And the other one is, as a smallholder, I'm also raising basket willows. Talk to you in a couple of minutes.
Thank you, Andrea. Next up is Alex Maxwell.
I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for inviting all the candidates to this gathering, and Rogers TV as well. What I'd like to speak to is the fact that we have three large industries within the framework of the town of the Blue Mountains. One being tourism, agriculture, and development, and oddly enough, for some reason, we have left out two of the largest manufacturers, BTI and Mesaba, which are very good industries which pay reasonably good money. But anyway, I'm going to say my role as a councillor, if elected, will be to encourage the other councillors to develop strong financial policies that speak to the needs of agriculture, tourism, and development. And then once we develop a general consensus amongst all the community partners, we'll move forward to promote the process at the council table and through the municipality. So anyway, what I'm going to also do is talk to the fact of economic growth, and the municipality, as a councillor, will need to deal with attainable housing, public transportation, labor shortages, access to affordable childcare, in order to attract a younger demographic to our area, in order to maintain our aging demographic. I will leave early from the podium. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. Up to you, Terrence.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Terrence Pettit, and I wanted to talk just briefly about one thing I think is very, very important for young people such as myself, and that is the fact that we do need attainable housing. Now, it should be very exciting for you as business owners to think that we have young people coming into our community who want to buy homes, who want to spend their monies here, who want to have their young families here, who want to start and end their careers here in the town of Blue Mountain. We're smart, we're resourceful, and we're very much interested in lives different than many of us what we experience in the city. I myself is one of those persons. So looking at the tourism industries, I think we could definitely further those opportunities there and capitalize on those opportunities. If you have young people here, you don't really have a down season when everybody goes off to university or back to wherever they came from, right? We can continue to keep these industries going. Other things that I'm very interested in, keen on learning more about is agriculture, right? What are the new things that are happening? Are we looking at robotic dairy farming, right? That takes a little bit of a different sort of engineer to sort of get into that robotic dairy farming. Perhaps we're looking at organic processes of making new foods, right? We're all very interested in having nutritious food that's within our 100-kilometer radius, right? How do we do this? How do we encourage these new sort of developments in our agricultural fields? And then when we look at development, attainable housing, there it is, right? This is a new development of how you can build homes, how you can be creative and make sure that you're getting all your bells and whistles and you're not actually skimping out on the quality of those homes.
15 seconds.
It all starts with having homes where people can live and work, having developed a vested interest in their community. What we need now is to understand that economic diversity is limited only by our ability to be creative, and we must be aware of our implicit bias and seek out and recognize existing resources and build partnerships in order to drive our development in as many ways as possible that benefit all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Terrence. June, you're up next.
Good evening, and thank you all for hosting and coming out this evening to be an engaged member of the community. My name is June Porter, and the need for economic development strategy is self-evident in the town of Blue Mountains. And there is a need to realize a community that is built to last, but not only for now, but for the future generations, and have an infrastructure for them to build upon. My economic development strategy begins with putting community first. So it will be a community economic development strategy, which is long-term by design. A community economic development strategy is a way to realize the sustainable path, and particularly there are three connected pillars: economic prosperity, community vibrance, and environmental and ecological integrity, so that they are balanced and complementary as opposed to often being competing priorities for the town and the council. Placing community first also means not just realizing the short-term economic returns on tourism, business expansion, development, etc., but it benefits the broader interests of the community through social investment and environmental preservation. So building on the long-term, in the long term, the traditional view of business expansion, etc., is also, by contrast, alternative strategies which are necessary, and they embrace the affordable, attainable housing, affordable childcare, smart, proactive growth. These require action to implement and more challenging to measure to deliver the long-term impact. Underpinning this is the need to create capacity, and I will speak about that more with the question I answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, June. And up next is Rob Potter.
Good evening. Thank you to the Chamber for hosting this event. Thank you to all of you for being part of it. I'm Rob Potter, candidate for councillor. Many of you know me. I was editor of the local newspaper, the Courier-Herald, for about 29 years. I was also the founding president of the organization that built this facility, the Marsh Street Centre. We took an old, unused facility and turned it into this. I also served on the steering committee for the Craigleith Heritage Depot. I was part of the Sustainable Path steering committee some years ago, the cause committee that did the downtown improvements in Thornbury. Also volunteered on other community and town committees, including the Attainable Housing Committee. I served for about 16 months, filling in as the town's economic development and communications coordinator. All of this given me significant experience in working with and around municipal councils here and in other municipalities. While I was with the town, I led the creation of Red, Hot and Blue, an economic strategy for the Blue Mountains. This was created with input from across the community. It contains some great ideas, and although it needs updating, it provides a great place to start the discussion of our future. Well, we have to support and protect our existing key business sectors like agriculture, tourism, and development. We can also look for other opportunities. There are many, and we need to explore these so that we can diversify our economy and provide new job opportunities. If you want to continue to have a vibrant, prosperous community, we have to attract young people to our community, and they will only come here and settle here if they find opportunities here. We know we have the jobs. Hundreds of them are going unfilled because of a bigger issue. For the past several decades, the focus of development has been on large homes on large lots. We've made it difficult for anyone to build higher density types in our town. So we need to work on that, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, but we need to have a more diverse economy, we need to attract more younger families here, and we need to keep our community vibrant and dynamic. Thanks again to the Chamber, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob. And up next is Rob Sampson.
The other Rob. Thanks very much, Steve. I think the question was vision. What's the vision for the future? I think very simply, in the 2 minutes I've got, sort of the elevator pitch, my vision is to not do what it is we kind of left. Most of us, I think, are, as they say, far from away. Some are from here already. And to respect those who are here already, and to respect those of us who have come here from other parts of the province or country, I think we need to not do what it is we left in Mississauga or Toronto or Markham or wherever. And you do that, but you got to do that very carefully, because in doing so you can't stop what it was that makes this this area so great. And that's with respect to all three pillars, the farming community, the recreational business that basically supports a lot of our revenue stream, business-wise and town-wise, and the development industry, which is a huge industry, massive employer in this area. So in each one of those communities, or those components, those legs of the stool, if you will, we need to do something to strengthen what's already there, make the farming community stronger, try to make the recreational community stronger and broader, same in the building side, but at the same time, still protecting what we love and we cherish and the reason why we came here. And the reason, frankly, why 2 some odd million plus people come to enjoy what we have here and then go back and on the way home say, gee, I wish we could live in Blue Mountain, which is what most of us did at one time. So I think that's the vision that I think this council needs to grab a hold of and deliver. And I'll talk a little bit more about the detail in my next 2-minute dating session. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Next up is Jim Urim.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming out. The thing that's happening in this town is actually quite scary. We've got more development going on than anyone here may perceive. There are 4,000 units that are in the pipeline in the town of the Blue Mountains right at the moment in application stages. There are approximately 20,000 new housing units that are coming through the system in what we call the Wasaga Beach, Clearview, Meaford, Collingwood area, which is it's quite an area. That's 40,000 plus more persons, that to be added to 60,000 people that we already have in this area. So we're growing towards that 100,000 mark really quickly. And there's not much out there that's probably going to stop it other than a severe economic downturn in the province or not paying attention. So the primary issue that we have to deal with is how do we deal with that kind of development as it's coming through? And the one issue within it is dealing with it means that we have to have services of some sort, and we have a dearth of affordable housing or attainable housing in that area. Strongly believe that our economic development can only negatively be impacted by events in our larger economy or by our own neglect in dealing with providing for that attainable or affordable housing. We're well positioned at this moment for at least 15 to 20 years of continued growth, and perhaps beyond that, because there are a lot of things that have not been counted recently. The recreation, tourism, and construction industries are quite capable of looking after themselves, and I think our job, once we get to council, is to listen to what they need to have and to direct them in a way that's sustainable within our environment, within our growth patterns, and for our people that are already here.
Thank you, Jim. And last up in this cycle is John White.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the Chamber for this. And it's comforting to see that, as in Collingwood, they had to turn people away as well. It's a pleasure to be here. I first came to the Blue Mountains in 1980, and I had the pleasure of transitioning to a full-time resident. I've seen lots of change here, and boy, we're going to see some more, as people have alluded to. My platform's real simple. We need cooperative leadership on council to get things done, which we didn't have before. We need a lot of infrastructure renewal and expansion and repair, and we need smart, sustainable economic development. Now, turning more quickly to the questions posed by the Chamber, tourism, as someone alluded to in the Sustainable Development document, it's less than 10 years old. When they did that, tourism was under 1 million visitors. Today, it's about 2.5 million. So we've increased by 150% in under 10 years. But there's still more to do there, and we have issues in tourism that we need to deal with. We have big problems in shoulder seasons here where our facilities are not as busy as they are. We don't need to find more people for Christmas, New Year's, Family Day weekend on the ski hills, things like that. But we need to find people to fill in the shoulder seasons. And that's how we're going to find another $500,000 or plus to help the economic vitality of the village survive. We also have to spread out our tourism activity across the town. When I first came here, nobody thought that any ecotourism in the Beaver Valley had a chance of surviving, and today it's busy. Those types of things are possible. And in terms of our other economic areas, yes, we have challenges in agriculture, and agriculture is changing dramatically. We're now at 2,500 trees per acre or something like that.
15 seconds.
It's a lot. I'll get into more later on, but it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Just as a reminder, the next 2-minute section will give each candidate a chance to answer those 3 questions. Tourism, agriculture, and development are the big 3. What would you do to specifically encourage growth in these areas? What plans do you have to leverage the current economic boom to create sustainable long-term growth? And 3, what plans do you have to encourage diversity in our economy? Back to the candidates and back to the very beginning again. Peter.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks, everybody, for your attention tonight and again for coming out. 2 minutes is not a long time, so I'll just try to, I was actually going to try to touch on all aspects of these 3 questions because I found them very important. The Chamber itself, in their questions to the candidates, asked a lot of questions. As we grow diversity and innovation within our economic sectors, tourism, agriculture, housing, technology, retail, and the priorities to achieve those. Reducing red tape at Town Hall. Support entrepreneurs and programs that provide capital, infrastructure, incubation, expand transit, expand childcare. These are actually answers to almost all the questions that we have in front of us. A clear, concise, economical strategy. We've written them in the past. We've shelved a lot of them. There's a beautiful sustainable path document. There's a red, white, and blue document. There's a lot of things that we've done and haven't done anything with. So what we need to do in this new council is we have to take a look at all aspects, from agriculture to recreation to residents to businesses. I grew up in Maple, which was a very small farming community. I grew up on a farm. Right now I can't even drive down that area because it's probably 2,000 houses on my dad and my grandfather's property, and I don't want to see that happen in the Blue Mountains. This is such a great area. We need to promote business to help keep going forward. We have to be there for our entrepreneurs. One thing I know in another town they're doing, they have a 1-800 number with a live operator, answer questions for residents and for small businesses. Hey, how big can I make my sign? Can I cut down my tree on my neighbor's lawn, or whatever the case may be? 64% of questions are answered by a live operator. Right now, you don't even know how to navigate into the town hall. And it's, somebody said to me last night that we were at an event, they said, it's like speaking Bulgarian when the other person is speaking English. You need to be able to speak to each other. And that's one thing we need to do with business, with our residents, in a total community forum. So there's a lot of aspects we can do, but they all tie back to something that everybody said. We need obtainable housing, we need transit, we need the labor force, and we need to be friendly and open for business, shop locally, and support our entrepreneurs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. Up next, once again, is Paula Hope.
Hello, everyone. This is the sequel, Paula the sequel. So I have had the privilege of serving with the Blue Mountain Chamber of Commerce. I was the vice president and resigned in order to run for election. I was also part of the team that elected to donate money toward a housing plan, the South Georgian Bay Task Force Plan, and it was presented to council in July. And it's a really effective piece, a really effective document. And what it's speaking to is the fact that in order to create the diversity that we're looking for and to attract young people, we need to have dormitory-style housing for our workers who are at the resort. So that's one of the first things. So it's rather the opposite to where we've been going, which we've been putting in developments and planning developments where we're looking at housing at $400,000 and more, thinking that we're making things affordable. Instead, we need to be looking at things very, very differently, looking at how we can bring young people in through having a positive experience at the town of Blue Mountains, plus providing them with programs so that they can be at the 250 down payment level and really start to be members of this community. So we have a long way to go. We don't have enough housing at all to support the future that we're dreaming of. So we need to really be much more strategic than we have been in the past, not just put development up because, and we think that multiple units is going to solve the problem. And in fact, it's not meeting the need at all. So we need to be much more strategic about our housing in order that we can support our businesses as well as we can support our families for the future. And in terms of sustaining, we want to make sure that we, as I said earlier, we need to have a team at council so that we can work very hard for you and live up to the vision of creating a community that's built to last. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paula. Next up is Andrea.
Just in case you're wondering, that third business venture of mine is that I do have a goal to become the third basket willow supplier in all of Ontario, because it is a need that needs to be filled, believe it or not. And we have the gorgeous area in which to facilitate cultivating willow. So what my message was is that I can't do any of those kind of enterprises alone, and my son can't do his business alone. He needs that kind of support that we've discovered with things like the Blue Mountains Chamber. So what can we do as a town? Well, for one thing, I think we need a full-time economic development officer so that we do have somebody who's dedicated to bridging and partnering with these organizations that are already here with their ears to the ground. We get value back for that. If we invest in making sure we have that kind of staffing behind these kinds of community organizations, then it means that we get to learn from that. The town gets to learn from all the research that goes on when all of these entrepreneurs are getting together and talking and saying what their needs are and what their frustrations are and what the solutions might be, putting together the solutions. So I think that would be a valuable investment for us. It also makes sure that we're going to have adequate staffing time devoted towards communication, because that is a broad issue, not just for the business community, but for citizens who live here too, to have direct communication and transparency and the way to be able to have a two-way conversation with the town on what we need. So I think those would be positive benefits as well. I think also investing is good, so the funding that comes from our town towards the BIA in Thornbury is excellent. I think we could use more of that for the Clarksburg Village Association, and also, of course, the chamber benefits from it as well. Again, I think that's an excellent investment on behalf of the town, because these are the organizations that will make things happen. We do have our 3 pillars of the sustainable path, and one of them is economic prosperity. And if we don't have all 3 parts, the environment, economic prosperity, and the community, that stool falls apart. We need all 3 in order to support each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Next up is Alex Maxwell.
Okay. I had an opportunity to, when I was sitting back there, I had to re-ponder and rethink what I was doing. I was thinking, really things are not as bad as everyone is presenting them, and to some degree, for the future. We've already went through this before. When we had the collapse of the manufacturing sector, the shipyards collapsed, everything went dead. But we rebuilt. And we built the Georgian Trail. We built the harbor. And then George O. Wider was looking at Blue Mountain, and they planned into the future on that. Town of the Blue Mountains, which currently was Collingwood Township, they worked closely with George O. Wider building Blue Mountain. We built the harbor. We integrated the 2 municipalities together, and we moved forward. So we got some challenges, there's obviously, for the future here, but they're doable to fix. And the attainable housing must be approached and dealt with. If we can't deal with the attainable housing, we will not be able to attract younger families to this area to work in the industries that have already been created. We'll also need to actively work on public transit. That's key as well. And again, I'll go back to about affordable childcare, because young families need affordable childcare. So what we have coming up in the future is minor to what happened in the past. So all these things are doable, they're fixable. All we need to do is allow the business community to create, the municipality to create the environment, the friendly environment to work, and everything be fine. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Terrence, over to you.
Well, any good plan, you sort of have to see where you're at right now, right? And for the new council coming together, we're going to have to take stock of what we have right now, as Alex mentioned. What do we have right now? And then where's the way forward? We have the way forward is the sustainable plan. There are no quick fixes. It is an investment. It's an investment of time. It's an investment of monies. It is an investment of resources. So for much of the time, it won't be easy. It will feel maybe sometimes a little bit painful to have put those monies out, but I believe that we can get it done. So things that we're looking at, small business center enterprise. I know there's one in Collingwood. I believe there's one way out in Owen Sound. There's not one here that I'm aware of. So something like that where folks can call in. Somebody mentioned about calling in to talk about things that they're dealing with in their business, the hurdles that they're facing, the red tape that they're facing, maybe applications for grants. This would be sort of a hub where they can get that information, they can receive that assistance in order to maybe get their small businesses off the ground and or take their existing business to the next level. We're looking at training workshops. We have a lot of food and beverage folks in this particular municipality, and food handler certificate might be handy in getting the next job, right? And sort of these sort of things that we could sort of provide that training on as a municipality. We can also provide information on building your social media, getting your brand awareness out there, and building your e-commerce businesses as well. We're looking to connect folks to programs and initiatives, right? As a municipality, we have that connection to the province to connect folks, and we need to make that information available. It really is about smart planning for a bright, sustainable future. And I hope you'll vote me on October 22nd.
Thank you, Taryn. Next up is June Porter.
Hello again. And as I was saying in the community economic development strategy, you have your traditional approach, you have an alternative approach, and then you have to build and create capacity. And that is about creating assets to actually achieve economic development for the community that the community benefits from, and that's employers, businesses, visitors, and us, and the workers. So there is a need to do that, and it is about taking action. There's been a lot of talk, there's been a lot of conversations. There is town land that needs to see ground shoveled in to build attainable housing, to house affordable childcare. It really needs to do that. Businesses cannot grow, businesses will not come unless their workers have a place to live, have their children, and also a place to have their own recreational outside of work. We do need a new recreational facility, and that is an asset then for attracting businesses into the town. And that really comes first. And then actually the whole community benefits from an increased social and environmental infrastructure. The other thing is it's about health. We don't have enough doctors, and doctors aren't going to come unless we have the infrastructure that they equally need. They may be small in number, but they have a very big impact. And so do the healthcare workers. That yes, we have an aging population. The retirees move up, but unfortunately we do age as well. And we need to have access to healthcare. And we have to, and given the wages that people make, they have to have a place to live. It was interesting. I had a conversation today, and someone said I may move to Collingwood because that's where my doctor is. The solution is bring the doctors and the healthcare to the town of Blue Mountains. Thank you, and I hope you will vote for me on the 22nd of October. Please pick one of these up when you leave.
Thank you, June. Next up is Rob Potter.
Thanks again, Steve. I'd like to talk about a long-term economic development strategy. Now, earlier I mentioned red, hot, and blue. To create this plan, we held meetings across the community. We had formal public meetings like this with a lot of people coming out. We also had informal get-togethers with a small number of people from a particular sector, from agriculture, tourism, the development community, church groups, arts and cultural groups, you name it, we had them in. We let them do the talking and we listened to their ideas. That's what formed the economic development strategy. Yep, that was also a big part of Sustainable Path too. So this is where we have to restart the process. We have to support our existing business sectors and business communities, but we also have to look for opportunities to diversify our economy. What business opportunities will exist in the future, both in the short term and the long term? We looked at things, for example, like partnering with universities for satellite campuses. We'd be perfect for a school of gerontology. Why not? A school of archaeology. We have some of the oldest archaeology in Ontario here. A school of sports medicine. How many people fall off the mountain? Beyond the quality of jobs these would create, it's worth noting that a significant percentage of graduates tend to stay in the area where they were educated, raise their families, practice their professions. So we looked at opportunities for arts and cultural businesses, green energy, and much, much more. If you've lived here long enough, you can remember when the Main Street business sections might look like they do today, but their shops were very different. You can remember when Pyatt's Hardware dominated downtown Thornbury, and when Hammond's Pharmacy was the must-stop place across the street here in Clarksburg. There was no apple cidery and there was no winery, that's for sure. So things change over time, and they will continue to change. What we have to do, and what Council has to take a leadership role in, is being ready for that change, looking for where the young entrepreneurs are going, and providing the opportunities for them to come here. Attainable housing is a big part of that, but we also have to have the institutional and arts and cultural programs going here too. So we need the town to be there to support the efforts of our business people, individually and through their organizations, to keep our town prosperous and have a sustainable growth in the coming years. Again, thanks to the Chamber, thanks to all of you, and please make sure you vote.
Thank you very much, Rob. And next up is Rob Sampson.
I'm going to talk to the diversity question because it links to where I ended off with my last speed dating statement. You know, I said, well, we need to strengthen those legs of the stool, those three legs of the stool. How do you do it? Well, I think you diversify in those three legs. You make those legs bigger and stronger somehow. In the agricultural sector, what can we do as a community and as a council to make the agricultural sector stronger? It's difficult to make money in the apple business these days, and it's changed a lot. That's why you have hard and soft cider being produced as opposed to just apples being sold in bags. So what else can we do to help that sector of the community expand and get more vibrant and strong? Because that business will change, and we have to be flexible enough as a community and a council to deal with that. How about housing? Well, you've already had some candidates talking about attainable housing. For sure, we need to do that. Look, who's going to move into all these million-dollar homes that we have built and own here? But young people who are getting through the building, the home ownership cycle, like my kids are doing. What about in the sports and recreational field? Well, there's always going to be, there will be the inevitable cycle in all those components. And then in the sports and recreational field, we need to make sure that we can grow that as well. We've got, you know, kudos to Rob in this building. This is a tremendous example of how you can actually start to build an arts and community component to be able to manage and support economic growth as well. Maybe Clarksburg becomes, and we work to make this is the arts and culture hub of the Georgian Triangle area. We can do that. And we can learn actually from what the village has done with sports and recreation and tourism. So a lot we can do to diversify, and I hope you give me the chance to stand on a council that will do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rob. Next up is Jim Urim.
You'll excuse my little bit of a gimp. I have a 105-pound dog that ran into me the other day. With all of the stuff that's happening in this particular area, I think we have to go back to our first principles and say, all right, exactly what do we need to make sure that when we put on the ground is going to be to our own benefit. I've spoken previously that I think both the tourism and the development industry knows where it's going, and the best thing for us to do is to get out of its way, just make sure that what we already have is properly protected. Something else that's happening is our agricultural industry right at the moment is expanding. It's something that 10 years ago we didn't think was happening. We've got more people in it, and they are looking at, they are already putting in more trees. They're putting up fences to protect those trees, but they need some help as well. They need storage areas, and they need to get their product to those storage areas before it goes down to markets, whether it's going for wines or for ciders or for whatever other cause. There's one specific location within the community in Clarksburg that I think we can partner with whatever happens with the Highway 26 project, and maybe we'll get the apple growers a bypass so that they don't have to go through the downtowns of Thornbury and Clarksburg and disrupt some of the things that are going down and through those areas. We can provide more protections for our agricultural industries as well. And just a final note, all three of our primary economic development forums are always looking to their future. Believe that it's their responsibility, it's the responsibility of council and staff to ensure that, that there is a continuing dialogue so we know where they're going and so we can help them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Next up is John White.
Hi, folks. To continue on, we have housing challenges in this community, not $1 million homes, but of attainable housing, and we need to fix it. But even with our challenges, I think the unofficial numbers in the school population, elementary school, is up 20% in the last 2 years. We have growth coming at us. We have development proposals in front of us that are going to increase reasonably in the next 4 years by probably 50% the number of residential structures in the town of the Blue Mountains. That's going to bring a lot of people. But we need to change our housing mix. That means we're going to have to look at our zoning. We're going to have to adjust densities so we can get attainable housing in some areas. We are going to have to look at development lands, not for homes, but for business. It really breaks my heart when I talk to business owners in this town who are looking at moving out because they cannot adjust the facilities, their facilities, or expand them to meet their business needs. And new business coming here can't find development land for light industrial, commercial. That's a problem. And let me say clearly now, I do not believe with the current council who is trying to backtrack out of it, changing the zoning to big box stores all the way up Bruce Street to Clarksburg. I don't think that's the solution. I also know that we need to adjust our infrastructure. Town Council very proudly passed a plan for 7 years to examine the faults. Well, the reality is today, tomorrow, and every day of the year, over 1 million liters of treated water goes missing. Doesn't get metered. We don't know where it goes. That's the equivalent of 250,000 bags of milk that you buy every day. If business is going to come here and operate at a reasonable cost structure, we need to fix our infrastructure. We don't have 7 years to identify the problem and then come up with a plan. We've got to get it done quickly. And finally, for economic development, it's impractical and technologically challenging to treat the dump leachate at the existing wastewater treatment plant. We're going to have a new plant to deal with leachate. That gives us a unique opportunity to provide wastewater treatment to agricultural industries to set up food processing and development in this area, something they desperately need. Thanks very much.